Commission recognizes Director Carter for our next presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are a number of organizations that we interface with and cooperate with and collaborate with. One of those is the Tennessee Environmental Council. Over the years, we worked in several different projects. You might remember last year when we talked about the 50,000 tree day, to plant that many trees in one day, and since then it's grown, and our agency's been proud to be a part of that. And I'd like to introduce John McFadden, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Tennessee Environmental Council. I think he has two different things that he would like to talk with you about, one being the trees and one another project that's associated with some property that he's involved with. So, John?
Thank you, Director Carter, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the Commission today. I always enjoy coming down here in December, seeing the Christmas spirit. But I shared with you last year that we had a project, about 120 acres we were working to restore. The deer are having quite an impact on my trees that I'm planting out there, and we started to partner with a group called Hero Hunt. And I want to just introduce and defer just a little of my time to Joe Towers, who's the executive director. Come on up, Joe. And he's got a couple of his guys here with him. So I just wanted him to share with y'all what they're doing, their mission, and maybe a little how we're partnering together.
Good morning. I appreciate your time. I know everybody's time is valuable, so I'll try to keep it to a minimum. We started Hero Hunt, Inc. in 2012. My wife and I were able to buy a small farm in Robertson County. It's about 50 acres, and when we initially bought it, I'm an avid hunter and fisherman. I was like, yes, I have a place I don't have to lease, and I don't have to ask permission and worry about new owners, and this is my place. Nobody's coming. So fast forward to Father's Day of 2012, I was driving my tractor and kind of getting a lay for the property, and decided we needed to share our fortune with some other people. I came home, had an idea, sat down at the table. My wife was cooking dinner and told her that we needed to open our property up to injured military. And being a police officer in Nashville myself presently, my wife is an injured police officer and had a pension in 2011 from Nashville. Being a vet, my dad's a vet, my brother's a police officer. Our whole family are police officers, more or less. But we don't want to leave out our brother and sister law enforcement, first responders either. So in 2012, out of our own pocket, we started Hero Hunt, Inc. We got our nonprofit status in 2013, and we've had over 100 people come through our program at hunts that I personally hosted on our farm, or hunts that they've been able to put together for us, like in South Georgia on some pig hunts, and some hunts down in Texas. We do dove hunts and turkey hunts. The deer and turkey and dove hunts are primarily on our farm and the neighboring farm. It's about 175 acres. Just the opportunity to be able to partner with Mr. McFadden and his guys, that's going to help us hopefully open up an area that we're putting a lot of pressure on to a little bit bigger area. But a little bit more about our company. Jose Sixtos, Sergeant First Class, retired U.S. Army, two-time Purple Heart recipient. Sixtos came to our program as one of our heroes, and we've developed a really good friendship. And Jose is now on our board of directors as our military liaison. Also is E.C. Castillo, I'm sorry, man, Castillo, also Sergeant First Class, retired U.S. Army and a Purple Heart recipient, and they can probably give you a better idea of what we're doing and the kind of outreach that we're trying to have and the impact that we're trying to have on our injured military, law enforcement, first responders. Jose.
Good morning, everybody. Once again, thank you very much for having us. It's an honor to be able to come up here and talk. I'm just going to give you a little bit of history about myself and why this organization became so important to me that I had to jump on board. I was first injured in 2005, received my first Purple Heart. In 2012, I was injured again in Afghanistan, received my second Purple Heart, also received a pretty catastrophic head injury, shoulder injury, hip injury, hand injury, lost close to 70% of my vision, most of my hearing, couldn't really speak for almost 2 years. When I first came to Hero Hunt, Inc., it was not something I wanted to do. I was afraid to talk to people, period. Didn't really want to interact with anybody, kind of felt useless and a little bit betrayed because once I got injured, military didn't want me. So, fast forward a little bit, one of my friends says, I got somebody you have to meet. And at that time, I was casted from the neck down. So anything from my neck down my chest. I was in danger of losing my left arm and had very little mobility on my right hand. Same thing with my hip. I looked like a walking scaffolding. I shuffled everywhere. So he introduced me to Joe Towers, Hero Hunt Inc. And when I first met him, I was, again, very reserved. I could have never done what I'm doing right now, standing here in front of this many people and talking. But he made it seem like I was more of a family member than I was like a participant or, just a hunter off the side of the road. And I can truly say that this organization and the way that they operate, and now that we operate, saved my life. We are 100% nonprofit. We don't receive anything. We all volunteer our time. And we also do return hunters that eventually turn into guides. So what we're doing is actually that same feeling that one gentleman that shot that buck where he said he was ecstatic, he's never felt anything like that. I'd never seen a turkey in my life. And I spent most of my military career out in the woods, never seen one. When I first saw it, I thought it was an ostrich. So that feeling that I got from the first time I was out there, and the first time I was out with Joe Towers, I didn't harvest anything. It was just that peace that I hadn't felt in over 4 years. I'd been in the hospital too long. I'd been surrounded by, all kinds of machines that were helping me stay alive or helping me, stay mobile. And for the first time, I actually felt autonomy. I felt like I was myself again. So now, as the military liaison, as far as the military side of it, anybody who applies for our organization to receive one of these hunts goes through me, and I talk to them a lot about how it made me feel, and how we could help them out, and how we're always going to keep it small to make sure that that discomfort is not something that we just throw you into a huge crowd. We actually start building you up. So we call it prolonged, a lot of people are kind of familiar with prolonged exposure. So we call it environmental exposure therapy. We go out and we expose them to the environment, and then that feeling that they get back, and I believe that EC can actually attest to this, that you get that feeling back and you actually start getting your smile back and you start feeling like yourself again. And so that's what we do. Our organization helps people get back to who they used to be before all the injuries.
Good morning, and thank you all once again for giving us the time and opportunity to come out here and talk about our experiences in Hero Hunt. I have recently retired 23 years and 10 months in the Army. I'm originally from Panama, became a citizen, and my payback was spending time and giving back my time for the country that I'm in now, and it's truly wonderful. Back in April, there was an incident that occurred that lost 5 of my guys, and I was knocked unconscious. I've got some memory issues. I earned my Purple Heart, and I was very, very, extremely closed off. I'm not the friendliest looking person in the world. I'll be the first to admit that. But I was referred to Joe Towers in the Hero Hunt Inc., and he will be the first to tell you that I was in the back of the crowd, quiet, by myself, didn't want to say anything to anybody, very reserved. But by the time that weekend was over with, he noticed a definite change in my demeanor. As Jose stated earlier, I wouldn't be in this form a couple of years ago. So I owe a lot to Hero Hunt Inc. I owe a lot to their friends and family, everybody that works with Hero Hunt. Even now, I'm sitting here kind of shaking. But I call it my Zen time because nothing else exists, just being out there in nature, the trees, the woods. And then you get that surge of overwhelming, there's one right there. And you finally harvest that animal. And it's a whole new meaning to life for me. Everybody's got a different experience, but to me, it was that moment that helped me take that first few steps to say, okay, I'm gonna be all right. No one in this organization is judgmental at all. Treated me like I was a lost friend from the family, and they haven't seen me for a long time. And now I just feel since I'm retired and I've got to give back. And this is what I'm doing here today. And I appreciate Joe Towers and the whole Hero Hunt family, and I appreciate you all for at least hearing us out and letting you know how the outdoors has affected us. That Zen time is very important, and we'd like to continue and give back to our fellow brothers and sisters, military, law enforcement, first responders. And I'm privileged that you've given us the opportunity to come out here and let us speak. So thank you for your time.
But before you continue, I hope the commission doesn't consider me being out of bounds here, but you've said that it's been a privilege to be here today to share your story. And with the deepest, deepest respect in the world, I think you got it backwards. We're the ones who are on the receiving end of privilege. It is a privilege to hear your story. For two men who represent a lot of men, three men who represent a lot of people who have given so much, whether directly in law enforcement or in our armed services. I'm in awe to hear you say, I've got to give back. I've got to give back. Thank you for your service. I know you hear that a lot from this body of commissioners. It is from the depth of our soul. You have sacrificed in a way that allows us to even be up here. You have sacrificed, and your bride, in law enforcement in a way that allows us to be up here. So the privilege is ours. Truly, the privilege is ours to have you here today. And I just, on behalf of the commission, I think everybody would agree. Thank you. Thank you so, so much. Excuse me, sir.
Thank you. I don't really know how to follow that, just for the record. Let's see if I can make this happen. And I'm gonna skip through some of this. I wanted to defer some of our time to them. Of all the, I've been working at the Environmental Council now for about 10 years, and of all the partnerships that we've developed out there, this is by far the greatest partnership that we've got out there. And it's such it's funny, they're out there protecting us in the foreign lands, but now they're protecting my trees from the deer. That's what we're doing with these guys. And our mission is to educate and advocate for the conservation and improvement of Tennessee's environment, communities, and public health. Years ago, we developed this message that natural resources are the backbone of our economy, communities, and quality of life. And I think really what you just heard speaks so huge to that quality of life piece. We do lots of work. We've gotten some awards. There's another one, the 2014 Friend of Forestry. I love showing the picture on the left. That's the liquid asset. It's a 24-foot flat bottom John boat. It spent about 4 years over on the Mississippi River with Living Lands and Waters. They donated it to us. The right gunnel looks like a snake. It's been so beat to death. But we take kids out on Percy Priest. We do some service projects out there with them, and then have lunch and clean up. This year we were incredibly blessed to have those two guys in the middle. That's Jalen Banks giving me the look there in my selfie, and Adam Butler. They play for Vanderbilt. Adam is the defensive end, and Jalen is a defensive back, and they were working with us they sort of developed a marketing program for us to interact with what they came up with as kids that are underexposed to nature. So we were super blessed to be engaged with them. We were also doing a little bit of work with one of the graduate students out of Duke, which was pretty fun. We've trained a number of people in our watershed restoration work. That's Mikhail Houghton on the right there. She is the executive director of the Cumberland River Compact. She wanted to go see this site. We had a meeting at a school before, and she wanted to go see this creek site. And I said, well, Mikhail, it's all briars and all kinds of whatever down through there. She said she didn't care. She got down through there in her sandals and her skirt. She's one tough cookie. She's the executive director of Cumberland River Compact, one of our great partners. We also spend time down at the legislature. That was on our was recycle day, and then we had a tree day there. There's some folks from West Rock out of Atlanta, and I guess Chattanooga and Nashville. I believe I showed you this slide last year. On the left there is a Bradford pear. We cleared about 7 acres of Bradford pears coming up in the fields on this 120-acre restoration site we now call the Green Field. That's a locust tree in the middle, and deer tracks, of course, on the top side there. The deer were leaving the locusts alone for a little while, but they got after that one. And then there's the eastern red cedar that's coming up. There's a lot of those. It's a great pioneer tree species coming up on its own. We're super excited about that. This year we planted about 1,500 trees across the state, gave them away to people to plant in honor of Veterans Day. And then we work on natural resource priorities because that green infrastructure gets stronger over time, improves the economic, natural, and the Natural Resource Commission and quality of life. Those are some rain gardens we put in. And then I wanted to go back on our Tennessee Tree Project and just talk about that a little bit, some of the great benefits that we see from trees, economic benefits as well as social and environmental benefits. And it's interesting, these guys saying that feeling they had. I think we've all had it, being out in the woods, in the forest, and just that calm that just comes over you. Well, the social scientists, the psychologists are telling us that communities that have more trees, the populations have a better sense of well-being. I think I showed you some of these. I love taking selfies, especially with 125 of my favorite 6th graders, in this case from Rockvale Elementary School. This is the Woods Memorial. We were working with the Tennessee Concrete Association. Woods was a little boy, he died just over a year old, and we planted about 400 trees there in memory of him. And this has kind of led to another goal for the Environmental Council. On our Greenfield project, we got it certified as a level 1 arboretum this year. And in doing this, we sort of decided that, man, arboretums are really good places for us to talk about biological diversity. And so our goal is that we want to have an arboretum in every county. We do a lot of work with schools. One of the big issues with schools is transportation, getting them to the creek or getting them to the nature center or an outdoor facility. We want to try to have one arboretum in every county, hopefully co-located with an elementary and middle school or a middle and a high school so that the teachers have access to that. Obviously, that's a long-term goal for us, but we've already got our first one started in Cookeville. I met with the Garden Club up there. By the way, if you get a chance to meet with the Garden Club, make sure you stay for lunch because it's always good. And we also, I guess, of all states, we got the specialist, Joe Shibig, out there. This is Cynthia Hernandez here in the back. She works with me. She's the head of our tree projects, running things. So there's this tree thing has just kind of gotten phenomenal for us. We did 50,000 trees 2 years ago. We did 50,000 trees this year. We were all across the state. It's the biggest community tree planting event in Tennessee that we know of. We very much value, where Director Carter go, our relationship with wildlife resources, as well as Division of Forestry and Environment and Conservation. We couldn't get trees out like that without those partnerships. We've got about 5 staff people that work with us. And then this is kind of our graph of showing, this is our numbers of volunteers and our in-kind labor value. The one number, this year we had about 6,000 volunteers. It equated to about $400,000 worth of in-kind value for us. That's about $50,000 more than our entire budget. So we over doubled our budget there. And then this is our projection for this year. That's the last 10 years, I guess. And you see this year, we decided we wouldn't plant 50,000 trees in a day. We decided we'd try to plant 100,000. And it actually shows 105,000. And we think we can do it. We've got some real interesting skill sets now associated with social media and how we're marketing. The past 2 years, we've gotten about 11 million media impressions off of that project for the 2-year total. That's more media than our organization has had in its entire history. And being the tree hugger in the room, I would like to note it was all positive. So I'm going to go with that. I saw this slide the other day from Jimmy Smith, and this is showing water quality degradation or pollution across the state. Habitat alteration has now gotten equal with pathogens and is more than siltation. Well, when I started talking to Jimmy about it, what that really means and the way that I'm going to communicate that to the public, a big part of it is it's cutting trees down on the creek bank. Cutting trees down on the creek bank. So with that, I found this slide, which is some work that I guess Environment and Conservation did with Forest Service, U.S. Forest Service, showing degraded riparian zones across Tennessee. What we plan to do is take our marketing in Facebook. You can do geographic marketing. We can target a particular county. That's in fact how we got 92 or 93 counties, was we started targeting those counties where we didn't have people planting trees. This year I told my people, I said, if we have some counties left out, somebody's going to go up there and plant the tree on the side of the road. We're going to get all 95 counties this year, but we're going to try to see if we can get more trees in these areas where we know we've got degraded riparian zones, and hopefully I think we're going to work with Tim and the agency on some GIS applications to determine how far we are from those trees. And State Parks was involved as well. That's Brock Hill and a bunch of group, and then that was our picture of the year. She's contemplating her tree, and then she's of course hugging it. So anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with y'all. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And once again, I'd just like to recognize these guys for what they do. I think another round of applause is certainly in order. So.
John, we really appreciate it's the same thing I said about Orca, tremendous partners with us, and you help us be successful, and you feeding the deer brought in the record today, quite possibly, but we won't go there. So that's, are there any questions or comments from the commission?
Let me ask a quick question. When you find a piece of land, do you have any input from wildlife biologists about how you keep open areas and where you plant trees, or do you take a blank piece of property and just put trees all over?
No, our primary, if we go out and we're working a piece of land, we're going to find where those ephemeral, intermittent, and perennial streams are. Those will be our first priorities. And then it's really, from our perspective, it's really determined by the landowner. Now, a lot of the properties they're already working with NRCS as well as the agency to determine where to plant trees and whatnot. And we had one of our supporters the other day for her 60th birthday. She wanted to plant 60 trees on her farm, and so she kind of chose where to plant them. So, and we really focus on those riparian zones because for every dollar you spend on those areas, you get $1.50 worth of ecological value out of them. And of course, the riparian forests are so important as wildlife corridors as well as for water quality benefits.
John, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today. We hope you'll come back. We truly do. And I'm like John, I wasn't sure how you follow this, but I think it definitely wasn't any planning on my part, but it just seems to fit. The commission will recognize Darren Ryder and the work that our group has done over the past 2 weeks. Before Darren speaks, Commissioner Ripley, you want to speak to what your home has gone through?
Sure. You know, I was moved by Bill Cox's prayer this morning about how we fail to be thankful sometimes, and being a resident of Sevier County here in the last few weeks has made me realize how much we do need to be thankful for what we have. I've never seen anything as bad. I've never seen so many of my friends and clients hurt and in many cases businesses ruined and that sort of thing. I appreciate very much all of the prayers of the commissioners and all of y'all. It's going to take a long time to rebuild up there. So keep praying, and we appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Darren, the floor is yours, and just as a preface, these people Darren is going to be speaking about, we have some of the finest in the state, and many of these folks are veterans as well, serving this agency and serving our state. Darren, it's all yours.